operates under the oversight of regulatory body such as the National Consumer Commission in accordance with the Consumer Protection Act. Our leadership ensures transparency and proactive consumer support, upholding a foundation of fairness, impartiality, respect, and accessibility.
Meet our team of professionals behind the CGSO. It is through their expertise that we every day change the challenges into victories of fairness.
Well done, guys. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Sure. The guys have numbers.
At CGSO, we're not just about resolving disputes. We're committed to raising standards of good conduct, ensuring compliance, and educating both consumers and suppliers. Our goal is to create a fair and transparent marketplace where every transaction is conducted with integrity and respect.
Accessibility is key at the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. You can access our services through our website, www.cgso.org.za. Catch us on Complaints mobile app, or we are also available on social media platform as Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. Or you can walk into our offices and complete a manual form. Every consumer has a voice.
Empowering consumers, ensuring fairness. The Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, your partner in fair trade practices. Have a complaint? We're here to help.
$8.1 billion people on the planet. But what do each of them have in common? They're all consumers. They all need efficient, effective dispute resolution.
Tasked with enforcing the Consumer Goods and Services Industry Code of Conduct, as mandated by the Consumer Protection Act, CGSO is dedicated to handling complaints, mediating disputes, and facilitating settlements between consumers and suppliers.
Welcome to the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. We are an impartial, independent dispute resolution body set up in 2013 in terms of Section 82, subsection 6 of the Consumer Protection Act. We educate consumers about their rights and redress should any of the suppliers or any industry player breach the Consumer Protection Act or the CPA.
Guided by an executive team and a board of members, CGSO operates under the oversight of regulatory body such as the National Consumer Commission in accordance with the Consumer Protection Act. Our leadership ensures transparency and proactive consumer support, upholding a foundation of fairness, impartiality, respect, and accessibility.
Meet our team of professionals behind the CGSO. It is through their expertise that we every day change the challenges into victories of fairness.
Well done, guys. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Awesome. Sure. The guys have numbers.
At CGSO, we're not just about resolving disputes. We're committed to raising standards of good conduct, ensuring compliance, and educating both consumers and suppliers. Our goal is to create a fair and transparent marketplace where every transaction is conducted with integrity and respect.
Accessibility is key at the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. You can access our services through our website, www.cgso.org.za. Catch us on Complaints mobile app, or we are also available on social media platform as Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. Or you can walk into our offices and complete a manual form. Every consumer has a voice.
Empowering consumers, ensuring fairness. The Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, your partner in fair trade practices. Have a complaint? We're here to help.
I thought I was fired there for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, to all of you who've joined us this morning, thank you so much for taking the time to wake up and be with us. And I always feel like it's a celebration. You know, when we look at the work we've done, we're able to reflect on the year that was, and we look at the efforts put in, and we're able to showcase the results. It's something that is critical to not only inspire what we are doing for ourselves within the organization, but it's about the industry and how we're impacting the industry. It's also about showing you what is being accomplished, but needing you to hold us to a greater standard when we keep on coming back, demonstrating and inspiring us to do better for the consumers within the industry. And again, I sit here and I think we're not even doing it just for South Africa. We're doing it to show what good looks like, to raise the standard and to align to the continent and to align to global practices. So for me, it's extremely exciting to be here. And I'm proud of the team that works for the Consumer Goods Ombud. I'm proud of the industry. I wish I could take you with me so you could see all the other industry bodies and how exceptionally well they are doing and focused on doing what's right and doing it exceptionally well and working with exceptional individuals. I also want to brag about the diversity in the room and the inclusion in the room. Many industries you walk into, and this is not the usual picture. So I want to commend you for really understanding that it takes all of us on board to make South Africa a better place to live in. And by the way, it's up to us. So for the Consumer Goods Annual Report launch, I'd love to give you an overview of who's joining us today. It's going to be fantastic. We have myself, I'm Zanele Morrison, joining you and being your Master of Ceremonies for the day, and then later on helping to tease out additional detail from players in the industry. We do have a panel conversation later on that's going to be joined by the CEO, Queen Munyai. She's the Chief Executive Officer. She's also going to take us through the annual report a little bit later. We also have Lee Subrathi, the Ombudsman for the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, and as chairperson of the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud of the board, it's Michael Lawrence. We also have the honor of having with us today Mr. Harden Rachisusu, and he is the Acting Deputy Commissioner and Acting Commissioner of the National Consumer Commission. Let's get ourselves started. I'd love for us to please give a round of applause to everybody who's woken up and dressed appropriately for the weather. You probably planned your outfit yesterday and woke up this morning and you had to do it completely different. But the men still just wore the pants, the shirt, the tie, and the suit. We're not happy for you. We're not happy with you. We are nothing. We just had to get ourselves here. But first up, from Business Day, who always help us to have such a smooth and amazing event, CGSO Motseneng, please come up and say a few words.
Good morning, distinguished guests, regulators, consumer champions, and everyone who believes that the balance of power in our markets should tip in favor of citizens. It's a privilege to welcome you to Parktown as we unveil the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud's latest annual report. Business Day is immensely proud to partner with the Ombud. From day one, we realized that our missions align. Hold power to account, shine light on systemic gaps, and elevate every consumer voice. In every complaint lodged and every case resolved, there's a story of accountability restored, trust rebuilt, and markets made more resilient. This report, as you might see, reads like a real-time pulse check on the South Africa's consumer economy. You will see where the appliance warranties or falter, where online retailers stumble, how fintech and digital services are already buckling under unmet expectations. These living stories of consumer frustration and industry response and the blind spots we cannot ignore. In fact, a few weeks ago, we had to make a really tough call at Business Day where one of the op-ed was framed as a consumer complaint. So we pulled it down, not because we don't think banks or retailers should not be held to account, but we said that we are not a hotline for complaints. We investigate, we analyze, and we provoke debate, but we don't, as Business Day, resolve disputes. That belongs to the Ombud, the people that are here. Every complaint flows through the proper channel. Our job as journalists is to report that, to get those insights, not to be a hotline ourselves. Yes, some of the findings will make you sit up in this annual report. The average turnaround time on disputes still lacks best practice. And sectors like telecoms and e-commerce continue to trail their promises. But tucked within this are hard wins, hard truths and real wins. Refund rates are climbing, referral systems tightening, alternative resolution truly coming into its own as an indispensable tool. As gatekeepers of South Africa's economic narrative, we at Business Day, we welcome this transparency. Our pages are stronger for the Ombud's insights. Our debates sharper because they rest on hard data rather than conjecture. Today's launch challenges each of us, journalists, policymakers, industry leaders, and civil society, to lean in, collaborate, ask tough questions. What systemic reforms will we champion? What digital friction points will we tackle next? How do we ensure every consumer, no matter how marginalized, reaps the benefits of a fair marketplace? In closing, I invite you to view this report not not as an endpoint, but as a launchpad. Let's convert these insights into real change, starting today, fueling your articles, or our articles, informing your boardroom strategies, and shaping your policy trends. Because fairness in the marketplace is the foundation of an inclusive and thriving economy. Thank you very much.
I was wavering there between, is he a journalist or a politician? He hit all the right notes. I think I'll take the time to just dissect what the call for action was to you, and good luck to you. Next year, I'll hold you, to the call that he made for us all to stand and be accountable. But I don't know how many of you have been in this area for a long time. As a young person, I started my first business in Braamfontein. And Braamfontein was bustling. And I look around and I look at the window and I look at how gorgeous the buildings have maintained themselves in the area. Then you think about how Sandton has developed. Oh, and then Rosebank, of course, the Gautrain. And South Africa is evolving at a beautiful pace. But so are we evolving as industries, really rising up to the challenges that are coming to us. And it's easy for us to feel, I suppose, despondent at a lot of things that we read in the newspapers, because it's all the stuff that catches our attention about what's not going right. It's very rare that we look at how are we rising to the occasion to solve for those things? How are we, as industries, as individuals, standing up and seeing to it that there's fairness in the environment, even when institutions that are responsible for fairness fail us? So whether it is Business Day, whether it is any other media outlet, whether it is the institutions that come from government or independent entities like this, it's the people in the room that are going to make a difference. And I love this about the leadership of CGO and the board of CGO and the people that guide it. We need a special sense of rise to be leaders and to lead effectively, to inspire people, to think not just for what serves us and what makes us look good or what pays our salaries, but to think about the least of us, who are probably not around us in this room. They're not here, but to represent every single person that walks into a shop and struggles to understand what their rights are. But the privilege of knowing your rights should not make you sit there. The real privilege is knowing that your rights should make you stand up and fight for the privilege of somebody who does not know what their rights are. On that note, Queen, I'd love to invite you to talk to us about how you are extending the privilege that is the right of every single retailer, every single consumer in doing the right thing. Let's give her a round of applause, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I remind you, Happy Women's Month to all the women that are here. And I'm not going to exclude, not going to exclude the men, and to the men that love them. Happy. So yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you this morning. I'm excited, and definitely I think I'm going to join you. I see this as a celebration of what the team has done. And for my sins, I've been elected to come and dish out what the team has been doing the whole year. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. It gives me pleasure to present our results for 2024-2025 financial year, which began on the 1st of March 2024 and ended on the 28th of February this year. This is an annual event where we account for our actions to our stakeholders, yourselves. Some are online. Thank you also for joining up. This includes everyone here, the industry players who fund us, the regulators who provide the mandate, the media who report the bad practices, and fellow Ombud officers, the consumers of South Africa, and some of the people that I see here, when I look around, I'm excited to see some of our stakeholders that are sitting here. I'm just going to acknowledge the members of our board. Thank you for supporting us today. It's a pleasure to have you. And I see also our mother organization, CGSA. I remember some 12 years ago when that seed funding, it has germinated its seeds. I would like to acknowledge our acting commissioner, Mr. Hadin Rachisusu. Thank you for being here. And Advocate Ju Gumede from Johannesburg Ombud's office. And the tax ombudsman, thank you for coming. Ms. Yanga Mputa. Rihanna Stein, thank you. The ombudsman from the National Financial Ombud. Mafanywa Nangambi from the University of Limpopo, and Dr. Mwepe from the University of Pretoria, Ntato Ngamane from the Rhodes University, and Professor Njotini, thank you for coming. Dr. Tapiwa Shuma, Ntando Ngamane from the, okay, I've mentioned that one, Dr. Tapiwa Shuma from the University of Fort Hare, and Mr. Pango from the University of Fort Hare, and some of our partners that we work together. Thank you very much for you. You are the reason why we do what we do, and you support us for that. So moving on, I think just a little bit of who we are as the CGSO. We are an impartial dispute resolution scheme established in 2013 under Section 82, subsection 6 of the Consumer Protection Act. Our mandate is to mediate disputes between suppliers and the suppliers in the goods and services and their consumers. This is why Consumer Goods and Services Industry Code requires us to report on the complaint statistics, how many we have received, where they came from, and what they were about, and how they were resolved, as well as our financial statements and audit reports. Until fairly recently, our focus has been on ensuring that we deliver on the service levels agreement according to our code. In this manner, that fosters trust in us and our ability to fulfill our mandate. The first few years were focused on survival, securing enough suppliers to become paid up participants, and these membership fees enable us to offer a free and professional service to the industry and to our customers. As a fundamental, we have been able to run more of our attention to another equally important aspect of our mandate, which is accessibility. Without access to our services, they might just not exist. We do need accessibility. And yes, we reach many thousands of people each month, as evidenced by the numbers of queries we receive and the number of complaints that are lodged annually. We also know that these come from bigger metropolitan areas, as you can see. And while part of this is due to population density and economic activity in plantation to less populated areas, it doesn't tell the whole story. Far too many South Africans face systemic barriers to access due to poverty. This translates to restricted access to data and limited access to services and information, particularly for the elderly, the young people, and those residing in undeserved areas or rural areas. We also know that women are disproportionately vulnerable as consumers, facing higher rates of poverty, unemployment, and food insecurity compared to men. This vulnerability is further exacerbated by factors like unequal pay, limited to resources, and gender-based violence. This is why the 2025 financial year, we stepped up our efforts to reach more people and remove more barriers to redress, reinforcing our commitment to all consumers in South Africa, wherever they are. A key aspect of enhancing our accessibility is expanding our reach. If people don't know who we are and how we can assist them, they can't reach us. And they cannot also access that which we are offering. This year, we expanded our processes or our presence across the key social media platforms, aiming to drive people to our recently revamped website. We engaged with media across the platforms to promote the services that we offer and educate consumers on their rights and responsibilities under the Consumer Protection Act, and specifically regarding online transactions, the Electronic Communications and Transaction Act. This resulted in media coverage valued at 28.4 million if we had to purchase it. We are engaged with a record number of consumers, entrepreneurs, and industry representatives. These in-person meetings were targeted at men and women between the ages of 5 and 65, including vulnerable consumers and those living in the disabilities and disadvantaged townships and rural areas across Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, Limpopo, and Northwest. Many of these opportunities arose from our strategy to partner with academia. And hence you have heard me acknowledging some of them who are here earlier, which led to formal partnerships with the University of Cape Town, the Redress Institute of Higher Learning, Fort Hare University, and the University of Limpopo, University of Pretoria, Tshwane University of Technology, and the University of Venda. Our engagement with this academia was one of the highlights of the 2025 financial year, and thank you for making it possible. This initiative began in the previous financial year in response to a call by the National Consumer Commission for a greater efforts to protect our vulnerable consumers. From our interactions with the consumers on the ground, we know that access to affordable data is one of the biggest hurdles preventing vulnerable consumers from utilizing our services. In response, we spent much of the 2024 engaging with universities in the rural areas to explore how we could collaborate to bring consumer protection closer to those who have been historically excluded. This upshot was that in February 2025, we opened 3 satellite offices in partnership with the legal aid clinics at the universities of Fort Hare, at Alice campus, and the East London campus, as well as the University of Venda. And later on, at the beginning of this financial year in March, we also opened at the University of Limpopo. It's not included in the report because it falls in the current financial year. This partnership will allow law students trained and supported by our office to assist indigent communities in lodging complaints, seeking resolution, and understanding their rights. And of course, where possible, in their own native languages, so that they can talk to somebody that can speak their language. The CGSO is a relatively small organization. We have a team of 42 permanent employees who handle everything from responding to the queries to lodging complaints, gathering information, mediating with suppliers, and providing feedback to complaints and suppliers. We also conduct all CPA training sessions and manage our stakeholder engagement and consumer awareness campaigns in-house. And some of the staff members are here. Can you wave so that they can see that I don't do this on my own? And some of them are online. You can send those emojis there. We can be able to see them. So now, in the 2025 financial year, we closed just under 12,500 complaints. That is 23% increase over the previous year, and 44% increase from 5 years ago. And also, highest number of complaints were closed in the COVID-19 pandemic, when we saw a record number of complaints received and closed. For example, at the height of the pandemic, we closed 12,775 complaints in 2021 financial year, and 13,946 in 2022 financial year. So 62% of these complaints were closed within a mandated 60-day time frame. This is not always our control. It's not always in our control, especially if they are waiting information or feedback from various parties. On average, it took 53 days to close complaints in the current financial year. This varies depending on the caseload and our resources. Our best average to date was 40 days in the 2022-2023 financial year. 53 days is comparable to the COVID-19 years, during which the average number of days to close cases was 57 and 63 between 2020 and 2021, reaching the highest level ever recorded. We facilitated refunds to the value of 11.9 million, either in cash or in kind, compared to the 12.1 in the previous financial year. We surpassed the 2,000 mark in paid-up industry participants, representing 19% increase on the 1,833 participants in the previous financial year, and a 235% increase on the 660 participants 10 years ago. Our call center responded to a record number of queries, over 40,000 calls, emails, and WhatsApp messages. These are handled by a team of only 5. Can you believe it? Our financial year are a key component of our sustainability. And I'm pleased to report that we had another successful year in this regard. Revenue is up 15% from 33.7 million to 38.9 million, based on the participants' subscription fees. This is a result of a combined push for new industry participants and diligent collection from our current participants. Our expenditure was in line with approved budget, and I'm glad our Audit and Risk Committee Chair is here also to attest to that. As a result, we are able to maintain cash reserves of 17 months. Our financials are available in the annual report for review, along with the statements from our auditors confirming another clean audit, and that is where we clap. Thank you so much. So let's now look at the meat and potatoes of our work. We number the number and type of complaints received, the number of cases closed, and the outcomes. Most consumer complaints in our sector consistently fell into 3 broad categories: goods that become defective within 6 months of purchase, punitive cancellation policies, and orders that are not fulfilled on time or within a reasonable time. This year was no different. We received 12,207 complaints, and an 8% increase on the 11,282 received in the previous period. Of these, 72% related to goods, services, agreements, and delivery of services. What strikes me is the number of complaints that could not easily have been resolved by the suppliers, or that could have been easily resolved by the suppliers themselves. As you recall, our process of complaints is that we give suppliers 15 business days to resolve first before we can get involved. But as our ombudsman points out in the report, there are not customer service problems. They are, in fact, customer rights issues and illustrate the need for more business owners and managers to be aware of the provision of the Consumer Protection Act and the ECTA, to comply with the law and to improve the customer service experience. If we drill down into the 8,740 complaints that fell into these three categories, goods that became defective within 6 months top the list at 17%. This is a violation of Section 56 of the Consumer Protection Act, which states that consumers have the right to expect goods that are reasonably suitable for the purpose of what they intended to be used for, and are of good quality, free of defects and good working order, and will be durable and usable for at least 6 months from the date of purchase. Late deliveries violate Section 19 of the Consumer Protection Act, which stipulates that suppliers must deliver goods according to the agreed date, time, and place. If the specifics haven't been agreed upon, the supplier must provide products within reasonable time. Any delays must be communicated to the consumer, and if delivery is late, the consumer may cancel the transaction without penalty. The consumer also had the right to claim a refund, interest at a prescribed rate, as well as any cost included or incurred due to the supplier's breach of the terms and conditions of those agreements. When it comes to cancellation, Section 17, subsection 2 of the Consumer Protection Act explicitly states that consumers have the right to cancel any advanced booking, reservations, or order for goods or services. This is not any to say that suppliers may not impose a reasonable charge for such cancellation. As outlined in Section 17(3)(b), the Act doesn't define reasonable directly, but Section 17, subsection 4 provides factors to consider when determining if a charge is unreasonable, including the nature of goods or services, the length of notice provided by the consumer, the supplier's potential to find an alternative consumer, and generally, there's some other general industry practices. A supplier also cannot impose a cancellation fee if the consumer is unable to honor the cooling due to a death or hospitalization of the person whom the booking was made. The second lens we apply is the industry sector from which the complaint emanates. Of the 12,207 complaints received, 61% fell into the 10 distinct sectors. Of this, online transaction accounted for a bulk of our complaints per sector, increasing year on year from 26% to 30%. This trend began during the lockdown in 2020, and 5 years later, not much has changed in terms of the consumer experience. Electrical appliances and telecommunications and satellite services are next at 18%, as you can see. Even as percentages of all complaints received, these three sectors topped the list in terms of the most complained about products or services in 2025 financial year. Most complainants find us online, hence our focus on digital awareness campaign. The next most common source of referral were friends, legal advisors, and the NCC. In 4% of the cases, the suppliers themselves referred the consumers to us for mediation. And that is what we advocate for, that suppliers must tell consumers about the CGSO. And this is where they came from. As you can see, 3 biggest metros for just under 80%, they account for just under 80% of our complaints received. And most of these were submitted via the website. We will be monitoring carefully to see the satellite offices in Limpopo and also the Eastern Cape impacts on these statistics in the next year, as I indicated that we open these offices towards the end of the financial year. In terms of the numbers of complaints closed, we closed 12,430 cases, which is 2,290 more than last year. Of these, 5,838 were resolved in favor of the consumer. And we were able to proceed, we were unable to proceed with 3,295 cases. To understand how we calculate our complaint stats, it's important to know that we exclude complaints that are withdrawn by the complainant, incapable of proceeding further due to lack of information or response from the consumers or otherwise, where the complaints were resolved without CGSO intervention. Those are the ones that are closed within the first business 15 days, as I spoke about. Those that are prescribed and those that are duplicated are also excluded. We also exclude cases where the supplier has been liquidated, cases where the complainant is a business with an annual turnover more than 2 million, because less than 2 million, businesses that generate less than 2 million are defined as a consumer, and they can also complain. But as soon as it becomes above 2 million, we exclude. And the cases where complaints has legal assistance or the complainant has legal assistance, and where the case has already been through the sum of the alternative dispute resolution or a court process. We also exclude complaints that fall outside our jurisdiction. In the 1,918 complaints referred outside of jurisdiction, 23% were directed to the National Consumer Commission, 17% to the National Financial Ombud, and 16% to our sister Ombud, which is MIOSA. And they're also here. So you can see that consumers don't always know which Ombud to approach. But because of the relationship that we have, we were able to refer to each other. And then of this, 37% were fully in favor of the consumer, and 15% were resolved directly between the supplier and the complainant within the first business days. Assistance was provided in 9% of the cases, while CGSO found partially in favor in 2% of the cases. One complaint was resolved through an in-person mediation where the outcome was not in favor. Is 1,423 cases were not upheld. Of concern is this 18% of eligible complaints that had to be closed due to non-cooperation from suppliers. And these are mainly those that are not signed up with the CGSO, whom we are unable to reach. The code requires CGSO to finalize cases within 60 business days. During the reporting period, the average number of days of cases increased year on year from 41 to 53 days. We have since appointed 3 additional contractors to help manage the caseload and enhance some of our processes. Apart from recording the details of the complaint, our job also lent to a willing ear and to listen to consumers. Every complaint is treated with respect, even if the complaint is not within their rights, such as when they do not have a case or they insist on damages, which the CPA does not provide for. We listen patiently and respectfully and do our best to explain and for the reason for our decision. This is especially difficult when the outcome goes against the consumer who has a valid case. But the case has been closed because the supplier has ignored our recommendation or refuses to engage with us. In this case, we issue termination notice, and the complainant has the option to escalate the matter to the NCC or pursue it through the courts. This is understandably what impacts the view of our outcome. The supplier experience is slightly smoother, with the CGSO scoring 80% of all these metrics. So what is next? I'm excited about the opportunities ahead. The 3 new on-campus satellite offices are almost 6 months old now. We are monitoring them closely to see how to replicate the model in other parts of the country. We are also working closely with the law faculties in all universities to ensure that law graduates are aware of our services and are appreciating the alternative dispute resolution process as an effective alternative to more traditional legal channels. Our long-term goal is to establish relationship with all South African universities to contribute to the discourse around the theory and practice of consumer law. We will also be looking at AI tools that can potentially do some of the heavy lifting around the complaints handling without negatively impacting the consumer experience. We are also continually exploring ways to enhance our analytics and sectoral insight, which will help us focus on consumer awareness campaigns. And as always, with an eye of sustainability of what we do and ensuring that the funding load does not become a responsibility of complainant businesses, we will be actively engaging with the industry and sector bodies, as well as eligible businesses, to bring them on board by demonstrating the value that we add. We will also continue to engage with micro, small, and medium enterprise to raise awareness of the CPA and ensure that more small businesses are compliant with the letter and the spirit of the law. This includes the spaza shops. Finally, our education outreach and advocacy program continues to be the key part of what we do. In particular, we are looking at ways to reach women-headed households, particularly those in the rural areas. These women experience higher poverty rates, and purchase that goes wrong can be a difference between putting food on the table and going hungry. For this reason, we must find effective ways to reach women so that they are aware of their rights and consumers and the redress available in the event that the suppliers dispute their services. We will also continue to focus on finding new and better ways to prevent disputes from arising in the first instance by educating consumers and businesses alike. If both parties know the rules, disputes are less likely to develop, saving everyone time and stress. So in closing, I'd like to thank our board members for their guidance and leadership, and my small dedicated team who continue to punch above their weight. And of course, our industry participants, without whom none of this will be possible. And our partners that we had to draw to help us, and I see them here, who are helping us to reach out to those businesses that are non-compliant. Without industry support, we will not be able to provide these services or fulfill our mandate. Every rand refunded, every faulty product replaced or repaired, and every consumer advisory and online cautionary issued was made possible by these participants. Let's clap hands for the participants that have signed up. We are truly grateful for their ongoing commitment and to raising the standard of conduct in the sector, and it benefits all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
The upstairs here. I've been doing the long walk to the stage and the stairs right here. Thank you so much, Queen. I think to give you the credit for the type of leadership that you provide to an extremely small team and to see the output of the work is really incredible. So I think let's give her a round of applause. It is not easy. It is not easy. Before we move on to our panel, you know, I have, my job is a really serious job. You know, I'm a news reporter on CNBC, and I do all sorts of serious work. But my true calling was actually as a comedian. And a singer. Like, those are the two things that I should have done, was comedy and singing. So, and I'm telling you that just for you to prepare yourself, that this is not the serious version of me you are going to get today. You know, so whilst this is not a full-time job, every now and again I get tempted to get high, you know, to get a permanent job and do like a proper job. And Queen, I'm very tempted to be part of your dispute resolution team, you know. And I've got very creative ways of dealing with my disputes. One endpoint that uses WhatsApp AI, the debit order seems not to be going through on my account, so I have to pay direct. But they then send me these warnings that I haven't paid. But I've paid and I've sent the statement. But I think AI can't read the statement, right? So they keep on then telling me that I haven't paid. So now we're doing this conversation with this obviously wonderful sounding AI. And I'm such a personable person, you know, I want to imagine the AI as a person. So then it's not reading it. So then I start writing, and then it just responds. And then I write, oh, we will forward it through. But I said, but you did forward it through, and you haven't done anything. So we're doing this. And I thought, no, man, I'm done with this. So I copied all my previous messages, copied all my payments and statements, and then I pasted them all again. And then pasted them again, and pasted them again, and pasted them again, and pasted them again. And AI is trying to catch up to my copy-paste, right? So I'm pasting. And then AI is trying to come in, oh, we've got your response. Thank you so much. We understand your frustration. Then I go back and I copy all of that. And then I go back to the bottom. And then I'm hitting this AI thing, and I'm blowing up this company. I nearly said their name. And I think somehow it must have alerted somebody. You know, then I got another message on another WhatsApp. We are currently handling your complaint, right? And I thought, oh, okay, this really works. Then I get a message from them warning me via email that I haven't paid. And then I said, I'm warning you. I'm warning you, your family, your employer, your neighbor, your church. I will come find you because I have paid for 2 months and you're still not uploading my number. I'm warning you. You warn me, I warn you back. You warn me again, I'll come and I'll warn you at your offices. I'm warning you very strongly to never warn me again. So I might get the job, might not get the job. But I've known to CC board members. I know how to find people's email addresses. I've gone to the police station and prepared some very colorful Sesotho words the one time. Because if you're going to choose to swear in English, Afrikaans, Xhosa, or Sesotho, look, competition is tough. You can use Xhosa or Sesotho. Only problem is that I get that, then I get them all muddled up. And then the look doesn't help because I probably should not be using Xhosa or Sesotho. So Queen, willing to share all my methods. Let me invite the panel on stage, and let's get on to some serious questions with the panel. To the Ombud, Lee, please join us. To the chairman, please join us. We also have Mr. Harden Rachisu, the acting deputy commissioner. Please let's come on stage. And lift my one page.
No, it's fine, yeah. Oh, okay, I can ask all these questions.
Can we take one more?
Thank you.
And now it's time for us to really unpack and enjoy, I think, this industry that we're working in, because there's hope for the country when we have people who are holding positions of such importance, but also holding them so authentically and close to your heart, you know, driving for outcomes that are for the betterment of all of us. And I think for me, if we could start off with the NCC, it's so important the role that you play. I mean, CGO comes right beneath you. You've got a whole lot of other entities that are looking at our country and saying, how do we improve the environment for consumers? So to start with you, Harden, what is it for you that wakes you up and inspires you to keep on doing this role of coordinating, empowering, and uplifting these institutions?
Oh, thank you very much, Sanele, and thanks to the CGSO for the invitation. And I like your example because what this shows is that AI will never take over our jobs, because what we have just witnessed from Queen is not the job of AI, is the team at the CGSO working on these complaints, giving each of these complaints individual attention, because every consumer requires that kind of attention. And that's why, as the National Consumer Commission, we work collaboratively with the Ombuds. So the CGSO is here, MIOSA is here. We do also work with provinces, because the challenge we face in consumer protection is quite huge. It's not for one entity to attend to. And I think with this result today, the annual report, the kind of redress you are seeing, just about 12 million to back to the pockets of consumers. This is what drives us to do this work. And for the NCC, this is the kind of structure and ecosystem that we would like to see, because most of the cases you do in the National Consumer Commission, there's a lot of contestation. They go to the tribunal. There's a lot of litigation around that work. But you can see that with the alternative dispute resolution, we do see immediate results. And the turnaround times, I'm quite pleased, by the way, Queen and Michael, and the Ombuds here, that the turnaround times are quite impressive. So which means consumers are getting redress much faster than the WhatsApp AI.
Yeah, yes, and effective redress and engaging redress. And that's a challenge we have in this country as well, is for me personally, when you are trying to get that redress and you are engaging with a consumer, I think, and I spoke about it earlier on, I feel I can. I've got that I can attitude, and I'm a fighter. But I fight because I think there's so many people who can't do it for themselves. One is you don't have the time, the telephone, the cost, the data, the access, or even the knowledge that something is wrong, that I should not be treated in this way. Michael, for you, that's important. It's important that everybody is reached. Accessibility is one of the key words that you use. So if you could tell me more about that.
So we've got this, firstly, this great architecture, this great regulatory support. We're busy reaching out, and it's important to go to vulnerable and even rural communities without neglecting the fact that substantive numbers of consumers are in fact urban, and as Queen indicated, in the report figures are obviously come from where the big consumer numbers are. But what I find absolutely fascinating is how more and more now I'm seeing evidence of people saying to me online, we'll go and approach we'll go and approach the provider of goods and services. We'll do this for you, and more we're seeing evidence of actual what is technically fraudulent activity. People saying we'll go and do things for you, and we'll go and sort out this alternative dispute resolution for you even before you get to the NCC. We'll even go and talk to your supplier of goods and services. It's when we see efforts by others to fraudulently monetize what we're doing free of charge, in a very successful way, then we know we're doing the right thing. But now we need to stop those who are doing this fraudulently, because amongst other things, of course, they get money from people and do nothing in exchange for that money, where they gather data from people, and they're able to weaponize that data in irresponsible ways in the consumer services that we're providing. And so, yes, access is important. We are going to see people climb onto the access bandwagon even, but certainly our commitment as a board, our commitment as a team is that we are going to make sure we're in the marketplace so that access which matters to people is also readily available and freely available to everyone who should be getting it.
And what you're saying is so critical because the whole ecosystem builds itself in environments that don't have an ombud. So, and people see ways of earning, and it can be legal systems, it can be lawyers, it can be, so it's so important that the ombud grows in strength in my perspective. And Lee, I want to pose that question to you. The strength of the ombud, does it depend a lot on participation? Where are we now and what else is required to continue to strengthen the role that we're playing?
So the concept of an ombud is a beautiful thing, and I'll tell you what, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about ombud as a whole. Mediation has been around for, we know how long. I mean, it's two parties coming together to resolve a conflict. And there's one thing that makes this work. It's consensual, it's being voluntarily aligned with what the outcome could be, with the possibility of future relationships. And I think this is where participation becomes key, is because we can't resolve a complaint if a supplier refuses to respond. And the stats speak for themselves. We are getting participation, we are getting a response, and fundamentally we are able to do what we do is because participants, suppliers across the supply chain, they buy into what's possible. And that is a future customer that is resolving a dispute, getting to the bottom of what's incorrect or what's wrong, and finding solutions together. So mediation happens everywhere. It happens in family life, it happens in personal relationships, colleagues, HR, and we are using it to our benefit and in a way that's impactful and adding a lot of value to the community, especially the vulnerable community.
And that being said, the role of mediation is important, but often what we don't see is the essence of the results. The essence of what, for the consumer, I can understand you got your money back, you're done. But Queen, for businesses, what is your selling point to say why is it important to be part of us for the health of your business?
So I always say that businesses, over and above that it's compulsory for businesses to sign up and be members, there are benefits that we give to our suppliers. One of them is the free CPA training, which we offer to all signed up participants at no extra fee. And also the fact that you are coming up, it's a confidence. It gives confidence to the consumer to say that you are coming up, you are willing to resolve complaints. That is a selling point because for all suppliers that sign up, we give them a decal. Those that have websites, they can put their decals on their website. Those that have walk-in stores, they can put the decals on the store. So when the consumer sees that we uphold the provisions of the CPA or the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, they shop with confidence, knowing that if anything goes wrong, these guys are willing to come up and engage. But also there's an added benefit of collaboration with other businesses. We share a lot of statistics of what we are seeing, and that is valuable for business to see what is happening around me, what are my competitors doing. So we share that, we give them our newsletters, we keep them updated. And if we see any scams or any trends, we report, we alert consumers, but we also alert businesses so that they can tighten, how do they improve their online presence, for instance, with the online being the highest generator of complaints. We highlight these are the requirements in terms of the ECTA. If you are going to be present online, these are the key things that you must have. So that is coming at no fee. And the benefit to the smallest business, which I think it's, I don't know if I can say it enough, that it's actually free for all suppliers that generate less than 1 million in terms of our funding model. They are required to sign up, but they don't have to pay anything. I mean, what else can you ask for?
And I think you're asking for people to understand credibility, to understand that it helps it helps your image when you sign up. But the road is very long. I mean, this country is full of SMEs, and the education and the onboarding of those SMEs is critical. But that's another conversation. Hadin, I think the conversation for me, you've spent some time really understanding the landscape and the organizations that are operating around you. If we cast our eye forward, what do you think is challenging us to rise to in this environment?
It's a very interesting question because this is it's a question that came even as we are planning for the next strategy cycle. So we have adopted strategy cycle 25 to 30. So that's across government. And the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition identified one thing that I think is relevant for this industry or sector, the rise of the illicit economy. This has been identified as a #1 threat for us.
Which economy is that, sorry?
Illicit. So
illicit
trade.
Oh, okay.
Illicit trade. So illicit trade. So it cuts across. So it cuts across all counterfeit stuff, all of these things that we see in the market. We even can expand the definition to even including people that are selling, expired food. So it's not that even we don't even looking at this as from a technical point of view. It's having traders in the market that are trading goods that they ought not to be trading. And this is what then not only affects consumers, but it affects the economy broadly. It affects the value chain. It destroys industries in South Africa. So our message is that when you enforce this, even from the Ombud's point of view, that ought to be an area, one area of focus, because we should not be treating companies that are trading in those products, with illicit gloves. It doesn't matter, like with kids' gloves. It doesn't matter where they are from. It could be local companies. It could be companies that are supplying goods into our space. So this is something that we are paying particular attention to. And we see it in food, in e-commerce, in many, many industries, CTFL and all of that.
And I think, because you're so right, it's not about what's just the things we're dealing with today. I mean, imagine how different the world will look when there are goods and services out there that are counterfeit. And the more territory they hold, the harder it is to pull back. But we also know it's part of a much larger issue around that feeds into drugs and feeds into traffic and all sorts. So we're not solving for small stuff, we're solving for big stuff. And Chairman, I think that you sit on a number of other boards, and there's a view on the global goals and the fact that we are challenged from a societal level to create justice and fairness, with the developmental goals. What are we solving for? If you had to say, this is the one thing we're solving for.
So, I mean, even with the whole geopolitical issues that are quite pertinent at the moment, fair value exchange is substantively what it's about. I mean, Lee's indicated that works best when there are fair-minded and willing participants in the process, and that goes to all aspects of society. Zanele, we really have to make sure that it's in our commercial transactions, in our societal engagements, and even in our trade relations. And in the context of our trade relations, we actually have a very interesting role to play. We often forget that we are a critical part of the oldest customs union in the world, SACU. It is the oldest. We often forget that we are the major economic player in SADC, and we are not always recognizing that we have an enormous opportunity to influence the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and its implications. And yes, we can ourselves be looking at best practice across the world, but fundamentally, we ourselves can be the torchbearers of what is the best way to do fair value exchange, very substantively when it comes to how it affects a consumer's access to goods and services. It's absolutely critical that what we develop is the kind of commercial relationships on the continent, within the region, where everyone has a sense of confidence in what they're doing economically, because that just builds more and more customers, but it also builds the confidence of those who want to be goods and service providers to be participating in that geographic space, in that economic space, in that commercial space. And we have such an important role to play. We're not just here for someone to come and complain. We're here to actually build economies, to build societies as a result of strengthening commercial activity, legal commercial activity.
And thank you so much for your points, because we have to lift our head up and know what the bigger picture is. That being said, the bigger picture is very complex because you're dealing with a large number of people who are not at the same level of education, and it doesn't matter what the age is. We're dealing with a lack of access, and that multiplies all across the continent. So education becomes important. How does rights become an intrinsic part of our day-to-day movement and not a course? Right? It's not training, but it's an environmental shift that can be done. And Lee, I don't know if you want to lean into how do we make it accessible? How do we make rights visible, easy to get?
Yeah, we touched on this in our conversations before. Ultimately, we're dealing with consumers in the fast-paced world of electronic transactions. There's so many concepts, complicated legal concepts, and our job, and I always try to embed this into the team, is that the oldest granny in the most remote place must be able to understand the letter that we send them. They must be able to be educated and informed, even if it's not resolved in their favor. And one of the fundamental concepts is that, unlike a stage where you see the presenter before they speak with us, our communication, our voice on the telephone, our email, the tone, the way we educate them, that speaks volumes because it's giving them an image of who we are. And we are there to guard consumers. We are there to protect even suppliers. We are there to create a sort of equilibrium across the field. So I can't agree more. And I think that in the fast-paced world where we're finding ourselves, we're geared towards being more impactful in the most simplest way. Because we want to educate. We want to create the generations to come that learn from our mistakes and create better policies, better consumer protection legislation so that they don't have to work as hard as we do, as building legacy. So that's the goal, access quality in the most simplest form so that we can not only educate, but also engage communities to get around the table. Let's talk about it. You bought a loaf of bread. I bought a loaf of, a liter of milk. What's going on is because there's a surcharge being applied here. Is our community being protected? If not, who can we reach to ensure that the bigger leaders are speaking so that we can make a substantive change nationally?
Look, Queen, looks like you want to lean in on that. Please go ahead.
Yes, I think when he's talking, I'm reminded that we are one of those, the Ombuds that have translated our material in all South African languages, talking about simplicity and the fact that we understand that all material doesn't have to be in English because we are going to communities. They must be able to understand what we are saying. And this move that we've now started, having people from provinces there and engaging, there's different cultures. Recently when I engaged with the chiefs, I realized that you can't just talk to a chief standing up. There are cultures that we need to embed into what you do so that you can get the buy-in, because what we need most is buy-in. So how do we get buy-in? We speak the language that the people can understand, because law has always been seen as a very difficult concept where no one can understand. So we're even collaborating with other institutions to bring in street law, those kind of things that simplifies and make everyone relate to this subject and not see it as a monster or something that does not relate, because all of us are consumers. So I just wanted to bring it up there so that we can know that we are willing to even listen. Because when we go with those materials that are translated, we welcome input from the communities themselves to say, how best can we communicate with you? What works for you? So that we are agile, we're able to lean into whatever speaks to them. But the whole point is that the message is the same. We want to bring the message to you, want you to be aware of your rights, and also how do you access redress, because it should be accessible to all. Looking for a day in which the Ombud or consumer rights can be a household name. Everybody, when we say, just like when we say Coca-Cola, everybody knows what it is. Looking for that day when we say Ombud, consumer rights, everybody automatically knows what we're talking about.
And hopefully they say, which Ombud? Oh, this has happened. Which Ombud are you going? Which Ombud? Ombud yako yipi when yaki Ombud? Because my Ombud is that Ombud there. I kind of like the word Ombud. So let's look forward to that. And I think it's also going to be about the platforms, like what platforms take it on, because people are on platforms, people are having conversations. But speaking of technology platforms, we often have the conversation about the online market, right? Feels very far removed. It operates through a platform, but the sellers are everywhere, and yet we're trying to move into this era as a country as well. Chair, what are your thoughts around the progress that's being made to mediate in that area?
So firstly, of course, digital is not our future; it's our current reality. It is what it is. I mean, we want it to be and work in the best possible ways. We've been doing a lot of research. We recognize we have a way to go still in getting on top of, and it's actually all digital. We, from as complex as offshore online to a number of local digital service providers, and not just people who sell us goods. There are people who sell us services online, AI services online. You can get legal services online, financial service. I mean, it's just becoming so incredibly broad. And for us to work out where exactly the accountability is, the communication happens. How do we pivot into being part of and present in the context of what our responsibility is? Yeah, that's fun, but that's okay, because what we know that's where we have to be playing. We know that's what we need to be doing and changing to. We always speak about the fact that we have a small team, and that is true for the volume of what we, not just what we are doing, but what we could and should be doing. If everyone that had the right to access our services did in fact access our services, I mean, we'd just be completely swamped. But then on top of that, if we take digital as a truth, as a reality, on top of that, we actually think we're going to be having to get even more ahead of the game, and it's all a matter of staying close to how all the moving parts are going to be coming together. We recognize it as a board. We have indicated to our exec team that we are constantly encouraging them to give us ways in which we need to be investing in being better, doing better, understanding better. They have a mandate. They have a mandate for that, and we will pivot our budget, not on a year-by-year basis. We'll pivot our budget in real time as we need to be able to get better and better, even in the complexity of the digital environment that we're facing.
And I think there's digital solving for digital. I mean, it's really, really challenging to make sure that your business is on both ends. And again, it's today, it's not later. And I just wanted to remind myself, we do have a few joining us online. If you have any questions, please do WhatsApp them through, or put them on the chat. I've got my phone, so I'll get questions. If anybody wants to ask a question in the room, please, I'd love to take a question from the floor. So just lift up your hand, and somebody will just let me know that there's a question coming our way. Lee, for you, there's also quite a number of I think, nuance that you are seeing in the system that you're having to mediate for. What are we seeing as general issues that if solved, we'd find ourselves perhaps dealing with less? Like, what is it that still needs to be done just to make sure that consumers are a little bit ahead of the process and we're not dealing with the entry level? A simple example of every time I return something, I'm surprised how happily they take it back. Why am I still surprised how happy they are to take it back and not ask me questions and no longer force me to have a receipt for the day? There's so many ways around it. So what are the basics that we just need to put out there?
Yeah, I think compliance, if I had to provide a simple sentence, is compliance from, and we always use this example, we laugh about it, in fact, from seed to plate. From the time the transaction even is birthed to the time that it's hand-delivered to the consumers or delivered to the consumer, we need compliance across the food chain. And I say food chain in all respects, is because if we do that, then we have a set of entities that are collaborating for the consumer's good and for fairness when it comes to transacting. And why I say this is because you mentioned online. online, like the chair said, online has been booming since COVID started. It's not going anywhere. That's the future. In fact, it's going to get much busier. And I mean, we are hopeful that the resolution process can be as speedily as an online transaction. Imagine a world where you could do that as instantaneously as you could. We want to see better turnaround times as an example. And I think one thing that, if I had to say, that that requires is accountability across the supply chain process, bringing all parties into accountability. What are they expected to do? What are their responsibilities? What are their rights? And that is why we focus so much of attention towards training participants and suppliers, because many times we find you don't know what you don't know. And when you do finally know, you're going to contact the CGSO to sign up. It's because you're going to find out what are the implications. How does it support the product that you're offering to the customer? It creates confidence, it creates trust. But aside from that, you have an ombudsman organization that's on speed dial. If you have any issues, any queries in the industry, an article that may have come up, we offer that service to our suppliers. So I think that what needs to be worked on, especially when it comes to e-commerce level, is the level of accountability, the level of clarity to a consumer. Who am I transacting with? Who's liable to deliver this product? Who do I complain to? Is because I'm dealing with multiple parties in one transaction. And if we can get that right from the get-go, I see the education being much simpler. I see consumers being informed much simpler. Consumers are better informed transactors online if they know what to look out for. Are terms and conditions conspicuous? Are they do they jump out on the screen as they're required to in terms of this Consumer Protection Act? So it's these sort of things, that if we work better at it, we create a more stable industry, a more stable network of collaborators to make sure that we are doing what we are supposed to do and being effective in what we do.
And I think that makes me want to talk about the telecoms industry and the contracts that one had. No, I'm joking. We know that there's no coming back from that one. That's a lost one. But the ability to simplify things for consumers. But I love how you also speak about the value chain. I think about the retailer, but I'm not thinking about all the other people in between there. That if they're all committed, it makes the process so much better. And so, Harden, I think my question, and again, I'm happy for you to take it to where you need to. If we look at the entire environment and we look at the importance of a system like what the Ombud is doing here, where else do we need to see ourselves casting an eye on helping to mediate for consumers?
This is a very important question, because I've always, and I've said this, I think first time I met Queen, I said, I look at this from my side as an ecosystem. I got a sense that there was some contestation for space or something like that. So I felt like if we look at this as an ecosystem, if we look at the number of consumers we have in the country, I think it's 60. I count even the infant, because that is also the consumer. So we're looking after a lot of people, right? And for us to do what we do and make the impact that will be felt in a number of communities, we have to work together, not just as the Ombud schemes within the Consumer Protection Act purview, but there are other ombuds as well. So this is a very, wide space where I would say, and I would encourage, and I'm quite encouraged, by the way, by what the Ombuds is doing, moving into provinces, partnering with universities. So this is something that you will, and hopefully that gets us to where we should be. And you'll see from our side, if you look at our strategy now, we've identified 9 areas that we think are a priority, right? And these issues around food, unsafe food, unfair contract terms that you're talking about. By the way, we have a lot of complaints against telcos that we're currently dealing with. And these are cases that I'm thinking now, how best should we be dealing with these issues going forwards? And by the way, when you look and our approach at the NCC, and I like the statistics, there are companies that do not take the Ombud serious. So they don't take, they don't resolve issues, and they hope that issues will go away. So what you're going to see in the next 5 years, this is the trajectory we're going to take. You're going to start seeing very stiff penalties coming out of our prosecutions. We will be pleading for higher penalties. The past 5 years, we've been, hovering around the 1 million number and so forth. But you can penalize a firm up to 10% of its turnover. And I think in my tenure, maybe short, maybe long, I think it's going to happen. Because if we do that, we ensure that there is deterrence. And once there is deterrence and that the firms know, they will then start taking the system serious. But if there are no consequences, chances are, companies will continue, violating the laws. You talk about, vulnerable consumers. There are many vulnerable, consumers that cannot speak for themselves. Basic rights. What are those basic rights? Some, they don't know these rights. You're buying unlabeled stuff. Okay? It's unlabeled, but you have to buy it because you are in a vulnerable situation. It's for us to educate, but it's for us to enforce the law. And we are enforcing even against the smallest of the firms. So it's Spaza Shop. We are issuing a lot of compliance notices, but soon it may sound, bizarre, but we may prosecute this Spaza Shop, before the tribunal, because we need them to formalize their businesses, mark their products correctly, so that we have a more fair and safer space. They must put up prices. It seems normal that in that space you don't put up prices. You have to put up prices. This is what the law says. Right? So we will be enforcing the law. Right? This is what I see in the next 5 years. And we also need a more firm and strong ombuds. When firms, and I like to prioritize those cases, where there is a clear contravention, they are refusing to resolve the issues. Those, when they are referred to the National Consumer Commission, those ought to be our priority cases. Because once we do that, we will strengthen, the system ourselves. But if we don't do it, we might undermine the system. And I think I would like this to continue. You must be reporting good things every year. Don't want a situation where, we start regressing because we are not strengthening the system. That's where I'll leave it for now.
And again, here we're talking so technically, but can you imagine the impact that solving for, let's say, one of those big entities would have? Because there are people whose lives are fundamentally destroyed, changed, majorly impacted because of a situation that is not taken seriously by those very same entities. So this is really, again, it's lives that we're talking about, when we do the work that we're doing. Any closing remarks and thoughts from the panel, please? And I could start with you, please, Chair.
So I have the privilege of working with a board that believes in keeping a flame burning. And we don't just mean about carrying a torch forward, we also mean keeping it under each other's rear ends to make sure we're all moving fast as well. It's that kind of team. We hold each other to account, we hold each other to high standards, and by extension, we encourage others to hold us to high standards and to be more and do more on a continuous basis. This is a journey that we're on. It may be, it's 11 years now, is that right? 12 years now, there we go. You see, my word, I'm getting old. It's 12 years now. That means we're not yet properly teenagers. That'll happen next year. What is a lot for us to take on board is how much there is yet to do. Yeah. And for that, we need other people, other players. We're not all-knowing and all-wise. We need to work with important partners, collaborators, to be able to come and do better. So please send us that information. It's good for us. We don't just want to hear the complaints that are our core business. We want to hear the how can we be and do better and do more. That is our future business as well.
And I like that open invitation, even to the journal, to the newspaper outlets who are not consumer mediators. Oh, he's left the room. Are you here and represent? But interestingly enough, I think we all have a role to play. It would be interesting to ask ourselves, what is the role that each of our industries can play to contribute? So thank you so much. Queen, a lot on your mind, some parting shots.
Yeah, so for me, indeed, a lot on my mind. But I think I like what the chair is saying, that really I want to reemphasize that help us be better, because we exist because of consumers, we exist because of suppliers. How can we serve you better? And I think it's interesting in our effort to collaborate and maybe benchmark even internationally. It's very comforting to know that South Africa actually is comparable with other countries. When you go there, coming from this side, you think that perhaps you are way, behind. You go into the first world countries, but when you talk, I spoke to some of of my colleagues from the Bahamas, and they were saying that I was asking them what methods do they have of redress. And they said, it's more effort. It will cost us more to try and return goods than to just go and buy something else if something is defective. And for me, that was putting us, it gave me comfort to know that in South Africa, small as we may think of ourselves, we are already ahead with good laws that are working, and this system has been put to practice, and our consumers are in a better space. So, again, help us be better. We are open for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Queen. Commissioner.
From our side, and of course, this is the annual report launch, right? And I think we should celebrate and commend the CGSO for the work that has been done consistently, over the years. And I think what I like about what I see here is consistency, right? And also the recognition that we can do better. And this question around advocacy, how do we ensure that our consumers are informed in the country? Because an informed consumer is an empowered consumer. And if we get that right, I think we have probably, half of our problem solved, because we also want consumers to be able to know what to buy and what not to buy. What I saw with foodborne illnesses, it could be tragic. So there may never be a second chance, right? So we need to do more to empower the consumers, coordinate much better, ensure that we build the system. I think there are a lot of judgments in the court of the tribunal. I think we try work in harmony for the better of our society, for our consumers and for our economy. And I think the challenge I leave for you is you should be thinking of other indicators around our contribution to the economy. It's not about just statistics. It's also about demonstrating the impact. Right? And I think once we do that, we will get a lot of support, and we will do better as the country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that challenge. I think the challenge is, what are we doing for the economy? The second one is SMEs. There's a huge challenge lying in making it attractive for them and making those who comply attractive because they are with us. Lee, parting shots, please.
How much of time do I have?
Ombud.
So,
our Ombud.
We believe at the CGSO the power of positive speech, and I want to say to the CEO as well, is that we are the benchmark when it comes to consumer protection. Let's be the benchmark, and this is a call on suppliers, on stakeholders. I think we sometimes get so embedded in the fact that we have the CPA, that we use it as the only reference point. Nothing prevents us from doing scenario planning. Making changes from a policy perspective that's not necessarily cast in law. We can give more rights, we can give more protection. And this is a charge, this is a call on everybody. Let's get together, let's talk about what's possible, and then hopefully and surely the legislation will bring in line, but we can create the better that we want now, and don't have to necessarily wait for that to come to us. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and yeah, that would be the closing and parting comment, or request rather. So let's see how we can make this country a better place.
Thank you so much. And I couldn't have summed it up better. Thank you so much to our panels. Let's give them a round of applause, please. I don't think we have any questions. While it's still warm in the room, how about we enjoy some food, some drinks, network, have conversations, and thank you so much for being with us today. It really was an honor to be with you. Take care. Have a lovely day further.